Welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show with the International Food, Wine, and Travel Writers Association, who we call IFTWA because it's easier to say. But I encourage you to go to their website, ifwtwa.org, especially if you're a travel writer or a travel association, a tourism entity. They are awesome. And we love to follow them on social media too, because then you can see posts from travel writers around the world, especially if you're an armchair traveler or planning a trip. It's a good resource. So you can check out the hashtag IFWTWA. Today's show, we welcome award-winning author and travel writer Jessica James. And we're excited about this conversation because she's focusing on a iconic place in American history, Gettysburg. And I encourage you to go to her website, pastlanetravels.com. She has a whole section for Gettysburg. She's written a ton. She knows Gettysburg. She lives in Gettysburg. Gettysburg is in Pennsylvania, very also close to the border of Maryland. But we also have a great article that she's written for our site, nationalparktraveling.com. Many of you have probably heard our podcasts on different artists through the National Parks and Arts Foundation, done residency there. We've covered a lot on Gettysburg since day one, especially even with the National Parks Conservation Association. So anyway, we finally did get there, Nancy and I, on our Love Your Parks tour, but it is always cool to hear an insider view from someone who's lived there and knows it well about what to see and do. So welcome, Jessica. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So how many people want to call you Jessie James? I had to go there because I've been doing things on Jessie James lately, and I'm like, no, that's a different folder than yours. my computer.
I get it a lot, but they can remember my name that way, so I'm good with
it. Did your parents think that when you were born, like Jessie James?
I don't think so. I think they just like the name Jessica.
It's a good name. It is. There's something about Jessica. It's still feminine, but at the same time strong in that name. To me,
yeah,
that's what I think. And now you became a novelist, award-winning novel. You've written a number of books. You tend to kind of get into history, don't you? You have an affinity for that.
Yeah, that's really where I started writing novels, was historical fiction, Civil War mostly, some Revolutionary War, and that just got me the bug that I dug into all kinds of history. So yeah, being from Gettysburg, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I know. I know you grew up there and you're still there, but did the novels come before the travel writing, or did it all just kind of happen like, hey, I can do both?
The novels started, and then I did so much research traveling, and I found out so many things that didn't make it into the novels that I started blogging just so I'd have something to do with that information. And people really liked finding out the little nuggets of information that I discovered. So I thought, well, put two and two together and do travel writing.
Yeah, and history travel, there's people who go down the rabbit hole of history and we're all nuts and we all get in it, right? And then at the same time, it's hard to kind of cross that line. And I think that's where it's so good to have fiction, historical fiction, because it helps bring people over the other side of, come on, you want to know about history because history is full of gossip.
Yeah, I hear that all the time, where people, they're not going to pick up a dry nonfiction book to learn something, but they do learn so much from historical fiction. So yeah, it really does play a role in piquing people's interest, and they might find a subject that they really want to delve into a little more deeply once they read a novel. So when growing up in Gettysburg, going to school there, because Gettysburg is also a town, right? So this is actually one of those unique just like Hot Springs National Park is in a town as well, which is different. And they actually have their own brewery. So that's cool. But Gettysburg, the town, is kind of surrounding the battlefield, but it is still kind of part of the battlefield. But like, was a town there before the battlefield? Like, how does that all work with the town and the battlefield?
It's not
Yes,
really part of it, but it is in a way.
yeah, the town was here and the battle started kind of to the west and the north of town, and the Union troops were actually pushed through the town. So the town is actually a battlefield as well. Anywhere you stand pretty much in Gettysburg and turn around 360 degrees and it's battlefield surrounding it and in the town.
So what was it like growing up, knowing the town, living there, and then going to school? Like, was history class like Gettysburg, Gettysburg, Gettysburg? I mean, it had to be like, I mean, you're in this iconic history place, like that no one else has. You know, we all have history, obviously, but this is really a huge piece of history. So was that kind of like, you will learn this history when you were there in school?
It's really strange because when you grow up around it, you don't think anything about it. We kind of took it for granted. I know I definitely took it for granted. We did do field trips, but it was like, oh wow, we're going to Gettysburg. Wow, whoopee-doo.
Been there, done that. Yeah, I go play there every day. Yeah.
It was really after, I became an adult and found, people save their money to come here and they get married here, they spend their anniversaries here. You realized what a treasure it is. So, I didn't feel that growing up though at all.
Well, it's interesting because like you've got the smaller town. We lived in a small mountain town in San Diego in mountains, a lot of history, Civil War history included. And a lot of people, Confederate soldiers actually moved west. And we had a Civil War site down the hill, San Pasqual battlefield. I always talk about, and people are like, the Civil War never went to California. I'm like, Ben, have you heard of the California Column? Then I start like, you listen, and then there's Fort Bowie, and there's these forts that did actually tie into the Civil War history. But coming back east, having been in the West most of our time in this country, and going, to Gettysburg, and we've done shows on Gettysburg for years. And then suddenly we went there. We were so overwhelmed. We literally had to go to the little picnic area and play with woodpeckers and the cardinal birds and stop. And then we did the drive where you could see all the different monuments from all the different, I think it's so, which is going to be a different feeling for you growing up there. But for us, it was very overwhelming how much history. And we never took the interviews we did on it lightheartedly, yet at the same time, I know you can get ice cream and have a good time in Gettysburg. Lots of shops. I got twirled around and lost downtown, but it's cute. When we were there, it was during the pandemic or people were starting to be able to travel at that time. And I don't know, it was just overwhelming going to the graveyard, seeing all the unmarked graves. And I don't think as many interviews I don't think you can be that prepared for the feeling you feel when you're there. It was just so much.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get that. And I'm more, when I travel now, anywhere I'm driving across the battlefield or even in town and I'm near a building that was there, I try to imagine what it was like, because it was just a small town and it ended up with 50,000 casualties plus horses, thousands of horses. So the impact on the townspeople, which is another part of the battle that doesn't always get talked about. A lot of people go to the battlefield, but they're starting to push now the civilian experience because it was such an important part of the history.
The civilian. Yeah, because I think when you see all the different monuments for all the different states, of course, the graveyard, and then you've got Abraham Lincoln's history and the unmarked graves, but all the different states. And then you have like the Native Americans who stood up in the battle, right? And you see some of those. I mean, that's pretty huge, and I just feel like I almost don't want to, when they say don't step on the grass, man, I feel like that there, like don't step on it.
True.
But then growing up there, you had to, and so it's part of your life to step on that grass.
Right. But it's a really hallowed ground, all of it, in town and when all outside of town as well. It's an amazing place, really.
What's it like to live there?
Well, I guess the main thing most people say is that it's a small town that gets over 1 million people. So some people might complain about the traffic during the summer months, but I mean, it's such a special place. I can't imagine living anywhere else. It's beautiful. South Central Pennsylvania is beautiful. Rolling hills, and then agriculture right outside of town, apple orchards, cherry orchards. So
I know it's kind of hard. Like when we first went to Eisenhower's farm, and I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. And we spent so much time there and it was actually closed because of the pandemic. Like you couldn't go in any of the buildings or anything, but out and you see signs where she would tell his wife Mimi would say, this was what basically kept his sanity was the farm and where he held all these big meetings. And I'm looking out going, I wouldn't want to leave here. And I didn't want to leave. And then we got to Gettysburg. And the first thing we saw as we drove into Gettysburg was the Klingel House. And we're people on horseback. And it was weird. Just, you know what I mean? They were just people and they were having a good time and goofing off. And I'm like, like, it was such a weird sense of feeling. Like first I was like, what, where am I? Like,
yeah, it's not unusual to see Union soldiers or Confederate soldiers for that matter, window shopping late at night. And that's just something that is unusual, but it's pretty common in Gettysburg, and women in gowns walking down the street, especially 4th of July weekend, which is the anniversary of the battle, or November weekend closest to November 19th is Remembrance Day when Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. So there's hundreds and hundreds of reenactors in town.
Yeah, the reenactors. And then there's the tourists going off on horseback. So that was
yeah.
like, what? And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I'm like, my first thing went to the battle. Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a interesting thing to go through, but you wouldn't expect with this pastoral landscape, this beautiful, like you're saying, orchards. And that's why I bring up Eisenhower's farm. And I mean, he even had a little miniature golf putting thing and everything. And then you come out and this is where like stuff went down and like some of the most iconic, Civil War history. And you're in the most beautiful region going, like, didn't everybody just want to stop and say, let's just not do this?
Seriously.
Let's have a picnic. You know what I mean? Because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is gorgeous. What's it like in winter?
It's cold. Well, what we think is cold, then you talk to someone from Maine or further north and they don't think it is. We get, a couple of snows a winter. Sometimes they're 20 inches at a time. Sometimes last winter was very late. I don't even think we had maybe a couple 4-inch snows, but we get occasional blizzards and then we have nice 50-degree days in the middle of the winter too. So it's not too bad. It's kind of right on the line of.
Yeah, I was going to say you have 4 seasons, so fall's got to be nice too.
Fall is beautiful. It's my favorite time of year. It's warm 70s and 80s, but the nights are cool and humidity's down. So yeah, that's my favorite.
That's cool, man. I mean, I think that's a good time to go out on the battlefield. And from what I've seen from your photos and the article and from the photographers and some of the photographers we know, they actually reenacted the scenes from the battle.
Right.
And put themselves in it. Like one, because he was a veteran, he could do it. Nick Collier, he did it. It was crazy. But you could see the different seasons in their photography, but it seems like, I mean, sunrise, sunset, there's something, it's weird to say, you have some of those photos where here's this battlefield that how much, went down, but at the same time, it is this meditational time. Like
exactly. I'm glad you can feel that through the photos because it really is kind of a special time.
Yeah. I wonder if the soldiers had that, where they knew, and there were those little moments where everybody, no matter what side, just kind of breathed in, focused on what they needed to do, but breathed in. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's almost like those old 80s movies with Jean-Claude Van Damme with the meditation, the Karate Kid kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not making lighthearted remarks on this at all, but there's that. It's so weird to see such beauty in such a bloodshed of a place.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And a kind of a feeling of serenity when you drive through when that's that is, there's a feeling of serenity kind of, but there's a heaviness as well. So yeah, it's really an iconic place.
Can you give, for those who may not be familiar with Gettysburg, um, and because we're all in different generations and different learning stages of our lives, and maybe new to American history, just an overview of what went down, because I know this started with July 1st through 3rd was the battle.
Yes, 3 days. Neither army really expected to run into each other, but when the fighting started the first day, which was kind of from the west and the north, the Confederates actually won. They pushed the Union Army through the town, which backed them up. And then day 2 was fighting around Cemetery Hill, the wheat field, the peach orchard. These are still iconic places that you can visit. And then day 3 is Pickett's charge, when the Confederates had the low ground. The Union by then was on the high ground, a little round top. And that ended with a Union victory. So the Confederates then retreated on July 4th.
Wow. And it's amazing, right? Like, just, it's huge. It's huge what went down. And so this happened in your town that you live in. 50,000 people, casualties. What rise? That's a lot of people when you think back.
Unimaginable. You can't really. I can't even picture. Yeah.
And what you're saying also, it's 6,000 acres of countryside this went down on.
Right.
And all ages. I always bring this up because they always had the little drummer boy and the little piper man, and there were different. I mean, there were young kids in this war.
Absolutely. Yes. And a civilian was killed as well. Jenny Wade.
Oh, you brought that up in your article.
Yeah.
While she was baking bread.
Yes.
Come
through
on.
2 doors, and she had closed an interior door behind her. And they were there's the house is still there. You can tour it. So they were solid wooden doors. And she still was killed.
Oh man. Now this is part of like the history we went through as we started to go through the north. I call it Northeast. Are you guys in the South or the North? I never know what to say about Maryland and certain parts of Pennsylvania. What would you say Gettysburg is?
Yeah, we're considered mid-Atlantic, and we're Gettysburg is 6 miles over the Mason-Dixon line, so it's considered north.
Okay. All right. So, okay, Mason-Dixon, her farm, Lee Waybright, the musician, has just been on our show. Her farm was on the line, so she's got north and south in her backyard, and sound because she's a musician. But when you think about this, right, all that goes down, but in the whole region, you have all these other battlefields. So when you look at it, we did a few of them, and farms got split up over it. I always look at this now as like these were these beautiful farming communities. People were working really hard before this war set in. And the war, yes, was about slavery, but it was also about property rights, as I recall. I'm not a historian, but the war is complex, right? Is that the way to put it? Complex.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Don't get at me. I don't want the emails, okay? I do not want the emails or the social media attacks, okay? I'm not the historian, but it's complex. But here are the people where it's happening. There's really families that, everybody has their thing, but they're trying to actually feed people and themselves and their kids. And at that point, we also had bigger families because the kids would work the farm with the families, right? It was just part of the survival and way to go. And so is it Monocacy? Am I saying it right? I know there's Manassas, Monocacy.
Monocacy.
Okay, Monocacy. Sorry, I can't pronounce anything back east or northwest. Actually can't pronounce anything. Okay. But thank God your name is Jessica. Jessica James. But when we went there, and then how the whole national park unit is split of all these farm units. And some of them were involved with African land too, and slavery. I mean, there's a whole other thing, underground railroads and everything. But it blew my mind because these people were in their farmhouses with their kids while the battle is going on outside them. So
Yes.
does that come to you when you're writing your novels and writing? I know you travel too, but you definitely write about Gettysburg. You have a whole section on your site, on your blog, about that when you talk about the lady that got killed while she was
Yes.
bred.
Yeah, well, everybody in the town pretty much, there's a story, one young lady, Tilly Pierce, who I think she was 16 at the time. She left the house in town because all the fighting, of course, was in town, and went south, and she ended up like right in the middle of the battle then on day 3. So they were scurrying, around. Nobody really knew where to go, and a lot of them ended up just in their basements, but I can't imagine the sounds and the things they saw.
I know. Did they know it was coming there? I mean, did the
There,
town know?
no, there had been rumors that Confederates were around, and there's ratings from residents who say they were just so tired of the rumors they were kind of ignoring them. So when it did, they kind of knew, but then when it hit, they had no
Oh,
idea that.
that's like one of those holy crap moments. Yeah, get
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
And they have basements, which you don't have in the Southwest. You don't have
Right,
basements.
right.
You have to like look out your Adobe window and go, ping, I got an arrow, or. But yeah, I mean it is different that way, right? And so that's what's so interesting too about how forces move back and forth. But like in Gettysburg, here it comes, and you can go in the basement, at least with the kids. How do you tell your kids to be, don't worry, be calm, it's fine,
Yeah,
when you know deep down, and they were so much younger than as parents, I think, too.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, man, I just, yeah, Shanae. I've been through some stuff in Africa and stuff where there was some nervous times where I knew like this could be it, you know.
Wow.
But I always think about these battles and the people that were on them, and it just always seems that they took over farmland. I was just at a Civil War battlefield in Oklahoma, Honey Springs. Nancy and I went there. It's part of our Jefferson Highway programming, and I mean, it's the same battle, right? And at that time, and it's very connected to Gettysburg and Honey Springs, Oklahoma. Holy cow. We had obviously North and South fighting, white, black, and Indian families
Wow.
fighting against each other. Families, same families in this one battle.
Wow.
Insane. The stories are, I mean, and we're not close to capturing all that story, because there's an amazing documentary that was done in their visitor center. They just got there, finally is up and running, and amazing state of the art interaction. When you look at the documentary, it comes to you at all like 3
Oh,
sides.
wow.
It's pretty cool. Like, someone's talking to the right and then on their left, so you're like, oh my god, that must be what it feels like. Really well done. And I think that's where some of these museums and sites have had to really go to have the experience, because you've got all the monuments, right? Which I think are beautiful and make you stop and pause and think. Maybe not for a young kid, but if you have something interactive to experience, you're going to go, oh, like this stuff went down. So on that side of it, can you tell us a little bit about that, what people can experience? Because we certainly didn't get to because of the pandemic. I think they opened up the cyclorama thing, that art that which we've actually done a show on, and artist Victoria Chick did an article with the big painting, that 360-degree painting of the
Yes.
battlefield, which we didn't go into because there were busloads of people going in, and it was still pandemic, and we're like, I don't think we're going to go in one room with all those people at that time. But can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's worth seeing, the cyclorama. And then, well, just the whole National Park Visitor Center is kind of a place to start. And they have a great bookstore and gift shop there as well. From the civilian point of view, the Jenny Wade House kind of takes you through and really makes you understand how this affected the residents. And there's also a Shriver House Museum, which they had a family, so it tells the story of how the family got separated and it's kind of heart-wrenching, but you go through the whole house that you can see how they lived in 1863. And then the newest museum is the Adams County Historical Society Beyond the Battle. And that has a great, like you were saying with the kids, interactive display where you sit in. It's as if you are in the basement. You're hearing the crashing, you're hearing the family talking and getting more worried about and it gets louder and louder and stuff starts breaking. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
that really brings it home and makes you understand how the effect of the battle on the local citizens.
Are you saying we have to go back? I think we do.
Yes.
I do want to go back. I do want to go back because I think the first time, like I said, we were like so overwhelmed because it was just, and at the same time, I want to go because I also felt like there was so many stories, and from all the different people we've interviewed on Gettysburg, I felt like, oh, 20,000 rabbit holes, and you must feel that with what you do as an author and writer. Like, do you think you could never run dry with Gettysburg of stories in a way? Like,
Absolutely. I just did a story. The whole another component is the Underground Railroad. And because it's so
oh,
close to the Mason-Dixon line, it was kind of the first stop. So there was a McAllister Mill that is a documented Underground Railroad site. So yeah, it's an endless, definitely an endless supply of stories.
oh, wow, wow. So, writing fiction, tell everybody a little bit more about your books and where they can get them and what you've written so people can know.
Well, my first novel was Shades of Grey. It actually came about when I
Not
was
50
living.
Shades of Grey, a little bit
No,
different.
no, it
I
came
just
out
had to
after that.
clarify.
Or my novel was out before that one, but my sales went up during that because people got confused and they were really confused when they started reading a Civil War novel. But anyway, and I just re-released that as a trilogy. That's kind of my most famous book. It's about a Confederate spy and a Union, actually a Union spy and a Confederate cavalry officer. And then I have Lion of the South and Above and Beyond, and they're all available everywhere books are sold. You can ask for them in your library.
What's your author website for everyone to know?
JessicaJamesBooks.com.
And everyone, I'll put this in the show notes, no matter where you're listening to this. We're on all platforms, but we'll make sure it's in the show notes. And also Jessica's, I do want to call her Jessie. Jessie James. I have had to really train my brain for this interview. But I'll put that in the show notes too for our article. But, writing these stories, I mean, when you're doing research for obviously living in Gettysburg, right? You've got all this real history, you're in living history. Does that help you with the research of knowing what was around when, did they have typewriters there? Did they have this? Did they have that? So you can set the scene with in your books. By being in Gettysburg, what was going on at that era.
I think the thing that helped me most with being in Gettysburg was being able to go to reenactments and talk to reenactors, sleep in a tent.
Yeah.
I actually went to the 150th and kind of slept outside. And so I had people riding by my head in the middle of the night on patrol, which I had never even really thought of, but they were doing patrol just like they would have been doing. So, and you hear the bits of the horses jangling. And I mean, there's really no way to get that without actually experiencing it. And that's about as close as you can get is going to a reenactment. So, and talking to those guys that are, they're really historians because they know everything about the clothing, the books, the cooking. So yeah, that really did help me.
Oh, that's cool. When you think about it, and then when they do the cannons, that's still, I've done some Civil War reenactments where I went to film it, and I don't care what's going on with my tripod on me, like nothing's standing put. When you can put all the, plugs in your ears when a cannon goes off, it's about to happen. You still jump. Do you still jump? You still
Yes.
jump.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow. So what about the African American experience during the Civil War? When they do Civil War reenactments, I hear a lot of, commotion over that. Like, can we also show the African American experience? Is that something you've seen in Gettysburg or your other travels? When I go on your site, pastlanetravels.com, I see that you do really cover history in different, especially in the southern states. Have you seen any movement to show more of the African American experience?
I actually have seen a lot. Most the towns I go to are also offering, because I'm always going to historical towns, so they almost
Sure.
always have an African American experience. And I know in Gettysburg during the Remembrance Day parade, which is just a parade of reenactors doing different regiments, they do have the African American regiment that because they did fight for the North.
Mhm.
They are represented and they're taking part. It's really neat to see.
Am I off on my history? Were the Buffalo Soldiers in that, or was that after?
After.
Hmm.
Yeah.
After. I do love the Buffalo Soldiers and Charles Young. I always give a shout out to Charles Young wherever I can. But you've been, it's really interesting going on your site, which I know you've won an award for, like, being a top blog for U.S. history, right? On your
Yes,
site.
travel and history. Yes.
Yeah, I love this because you look. One of your categories is trees. I love that. And tell everybody about since we're talking about Gettysburg Witness Tree. Tell everybody about that.
Yes, I'm a big tree person. I love
Oh, so are we.
going.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. Everywhere I go, I have to stop and see trees. Down south, it's so neat because the live oaks are like 300 and 500 years old. But anyway, in Gettysburg, we do have trees that are 150 years old. So they witnessed the Battle of Gettysburg. There's two on Baltimore Street that also witnessed President Lincoln walking by. So to me, that's just a living connection to that period, to think that stood there at the time when President Lincoln went by and the battle was fought.
Well, you see, I have the same thing with trees and horses because they took bullets
Yes.
through wars, and trees did too. And then people go carve their name, and I'm like, dude, why do you have to do that to the tree? They don't need any more. And they provide us with good air. I mean, even where we are, as we travel the country, we pet sit, and so we get to hang out with the animals which we love, and do our work like what we're doing now. We have this giant oak tree here in Arkansas where we are, and you are not allowed to drive anywhere near the oak tree because of the roots, which I love. I think that
Good.
is so
Yes.
special. It's a small farm, but this oak tree is allowed its space to grow and breathe and be. And it's magical. You see the fireflies go up to it.
Oh,
They
wow.
just fly up. Oh, it's magical. And you think about these trees, how long they've been there. They've witnessed so much. And then you think about, like, we are part tree. They've proved that part of our DNA is tree as human beings. It's like a microscopic of a percentage, but I think that
I
makes
never
me
heard
happy to
that.
be alive. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we love trees so much, that we know we're part tree.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at mushrooms differently too, because they're part animal, part vegetable. They're their own species. They're not a vegetable. So vegans, you are eating animal.
Yeah.
Just saying. Oh. I'm just saying. But yeah, these trees, like the witness tree, there's hanging trees in history too. Have you been to any of those hanging trees, which is sad?
No.
Oh, there's some in the Southwest, and then there's the trees where the Native Americans have used them too, as markers and things in forests, in the South too. Have you been to Thomasville, Georgia?
No.
Oh, you got to go. The big oak tree of Thomasville. You've got to go.
Okay, I'm going to look that one up.
Yes. It's one of the largest southern live oak trees
Oh,
east of the
wow.
Mississippi, and we went there. Fortunately, it wasn't a nice sunny day. You know how that happens when you travel, right? You're going to go get the best photo, and, like, sorry, we're going to rain on you while you're there. Doesn't that always happen to us,
Yes.
right? It did. But this tree apparently is from 1680,
Oh, wow.
and its limbs go over 165 feet.
Jeez.
Trunk is 26.5 circumference. I had to do this because I was on your tree section. But I mean, when you go, there's a magnificence. But you did the Angel Oak in South Carolina, which we haven't done
Yes.
yet. And oh, that looks gnarly. Like you want to go sit in one of those limbs, don't you?
Yeah, it's amazing because, and that is kind
That's
of a
a
spiritual thing because they just say so many people, I mean, way like I forget how old that was. Some people say 500 years, some people say more. So it was all kinds of Native Americans they had ceremonial things there, and it's really amazing.
So when you travel, because you've done Virginia, Harper's Ferry, I love Harper's Ferry. We spent one night there, and I need to go back because I don't think you can't just do one night. I mean, you
No,
can't.
especially if you want to hike. I want to go back there and hike some more. There's a lot of trails all around.
Exactly. We stayed at a bed and breakfast called Rock Haven, and they don't even serve you breakfast. They have it in your fridge in your room. Like
Oh,
they
wow.
know everybody gets up early and hikes. That's
Right.
what she said. And it was the educators, professors from the school, lived there and built this house out of rock. That's why it's called Rock Haven. And I hope I'm getting the name right, but it was a few years back. But it was awesome. And the gardens and everything. I mean, it is amazing how when you see these well, I'm going to say it's south, right? Am I going to be wrong? Am I wrong
Yeah,
about?
I'd say it was part of Virginia. So yes, south.
I never know what to say or do. I'm still learning my Southern and Northeast history here. I'm always having to Google, like, am I right? And no, you're not. No matter what, I'm wrong. But I mean, it was just amazing how they built up and went through wars all at kind of the same time. It kind of felt like if you were living during that time, it had to be kind of disheartening and hopeful all at the same time. What would you
Right.
think? Do you think that, like, when you're writing and you're going from character perspectives, what do you think your characters were going through at those time frames, those eras of feeling, of living and being and trying to, you have families and yet it's so hard.
It was I've read a lot of firsthand accounts, and I'm kind of amazed at how hopeful, like you said, hopeful they were. I don't know how you stay hopeful in some of the circumstances that they had, but that is kind of the main thing that I get out of it.
I wonder now if maybe, I think we're still hopeful. I do believe that. I think we are, in general, because like we deal with so many people one-on-one and travel so much that we communicate with so many people and read things and beyond the mainstream news. And I think if people could do more travel and communication with locals, that they'll see more hope. What do you think?
Absolutely. That hits the nail on the head. Yeah, traveling and getting to meet people and getting to really immerse yourself in their town and learn the ins and outs and where they eat and what they do, and people could learn a lot.
I think it is because at the same time, when you read history and you see how we repeat it, it's scary too, because you could lose hope if you keep reading history and how we repeat it. But then you've got to realize there's a lot of heroes and survivors and people that stood up for the right thing. And there's always the devil, right? And there's always a hero and a brave person and people doing like just really good acts that we go to history to learn what to stand up for and how to do it. And people are so brave that they will do it whether or not they're going to live.
Yes, that's amazing. And when you do get caught up in what's going on today and think it's terrible, you just have to look back at history and think this is nothing compared to what people have gone through and how many courageous people, like you said, have stood up. And
I know now we could have a cold and not feel well, and like Walmart would deliver things to your door. Not that we want it from Walmart. I'm not giving them a plug at all. But like you could have anything delivered to your door depending on where you live. I don't know if you can get things delivered in Gettysburg, but you can in most urban places have things delivered to your door. Back in the day, if you weren't feeling well, good for you. Hopefully, especially if you're the mom, good luck on that. Right?
Yeah, My husband is also kind of a historian, and if someone complains about doing the wash, he always says, "Really? You throw it in the washing machine and push the button. It's not like you're
Oh,
out there with a washboard heating the water up." And
you don't even
so,
have to split your laundry anymore. Like really, I know, leave the towels out. Like don't put towel. That is that. But even now, you could put all of them, and it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean?
it
Like,
can't get any easier than what it is, really.
yeah. Oh, it's the diorama. I'm on your website again. Yeah, everyone, pastlanetravels.com. It's a diorama. I kept calling it the cyclorama. It's a diorama.
Well,
What's
there's
a
a cyclorama.
cyclorama?
There's a cyclorama too. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I obviously have to go back. Nancy and I need to go
Yes,
back.
you
There's
do.
just so much. It was one and we did spend so much time at Eisenhower's farm that we really did. You've been there, right?
Yes.
It's oh,
And
why
that's
did we?
that's a
It's
that's a
beautiful.
nice place to visit at Christmas because they
Oh,
decorate that for the holidays. So
what happens in Gettysburg over the holidays? Did they do anything?
they do. There's a Gettysburg Christmas Festival the first weekend in December, which they closed all the streets down around the square. They have jumpy houses for kids. The stores have special sales. It's a big festival, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, live music, all that kind of stuff. And the museums and things, they all go all out, decorate. So
Mm. So tell us a little bit about your travels out. I know you're a member of IFTWA. Obviously, this is what we do with these shows, and the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association. You've been a member about a year or so. What led you to join? Let's join. Talk about that for travel writers listening in about the benefits of being part of an organization for writers.
yeah, I heard about it at a conference. I knew someone else who was a member, and she told me about it, and I looked around and joined it, and it's really been beneficial. The press tours, they have webinars that are really helpful to people who are writing all aspects of being a travel blogger, traveling, and it's just a good place to network with other writers and learn about places really that otherwise I wouldn't know about. So it's really been
And
beneficial.
I think you bring up a good point, because I also want listeners who aren't travel writers, who are travelers, to understand that travel writers have to do this stuff. And, the more they do in professional organizations, it's like, you go to a store and you see that they're a member of the local merchants association or chamber or something like that, that they're taking the extra steps in their business to do the best thing and be part of the community. So, travel writers will do this, photographers, destinations, they all want to work together to get the information to you. And that's what's interesting. People go, oh, you've got this wonderful life of having free travel and writing. And it's a little bit more than that. I'm just going to say. And organizations like IFTWA really help, and the CVBs, the visitor bureaus. It's a whirlwind when you go on these trips, but then you get sucked into stories and it's a lot more work than what everybody will think,
Yeah,
right?
it really is. I mean, it's enjoyable because you do get to see things and learn things, but it is very hectic and very there's a lot of work involved, to put it that way.
But I think what's really cool is that as travel writers, we get to have tours that the general public don't always get, because there's a limited resources in like, you're not always going to get to see this behind the scenes tour because museums can't open it up to the public
Right.
for temperature reasons, for an archive, for all kinds of reasons, like maybe not having enough staff, or you know what I mean. There's just some things that are hidden, and
Right.
it's not to be rude, but it has to be, and that's our job as
Exactly.
writers.
That's why it's so important, yeah, that we do it so that we can at least give people the information and get the kind of the behind the scenes look at things.
When you travel, do you try to stay more in the historic kind of places, historic hotels, eat in historic restaurants, and kind of keep everything in a historic theme?
I do. I love staying in historic hotels whenever I can. Absolutely. And any kind of tavern old inn. I love eating and being able to go to those as well.
All right. You love eating. Okay. I'm going in Gettysburg. I'm going to Gettysburg in the fall. All right. Because I know when this is airing. So let's plan for fall.
Perfect.
What would you do on a day in Gettysburg? I know you know it so well, but like you, the local insider, what is a must do in Gettysburg, like in the park, the battlefield itself, that you say go do in this fall? And where should we go in the actual community to experience something there? And where should we stay and where should we eat?
Okay. Well, my head is spinning because I'm thinking, how would you, if someone was coming for the first time, I think I would tell
I know,
them,
but listen, you don't want to do what we did. You want to spend longer.
yeah,
You know, I want to give a shout out to George's on New York bed and breakfast where we stayed. But it's around the corner. That's the other thing. People need to know that there's Gettysburg lodging, right? But you're on the border of Pennsylvania too. Or no, I mean
Maryland,
of Maryland. Maryland. Let
right.
me get it straight. Yeah, Maryland. Town is in Maryland. That's where they
Right.
are.
Right.
But oh my God, man, they prepared this huge, like, you need to do this hike, that hike. And we went out there. I'm like, oh my God, we need to come back for more than, yeah, I mean, they are such enthusiasts. I'm gonna connect you with them if you don't know them already. Yeah, I'm like, you guys need to connect.
That-
They're awesome. I think he also grew up in your area. See, yeah. You guys are a bunch of locals. I know a bunch of locals and you guys haven't met. That's what's going to happen. We're going to come back to Gettysburg and throw a party. That's what we're going to do. And everybody I know that's from Gettysburg needs to come. That's exactly it. We'll have a party.
That's great. Yeah.
You know what? It would be fun, wouldn't it? Like there's
Yes, it
so many
would.
people I know that we've done all these shows, and then when we went,
Yeah.
like no one was there because of the pandemic. We're like,
Right.
where's our buddies? And no one, and people are like, we're not even allowed to leave our state. And I'm like, oh, come on, just drive, get in your car.
Yeah.
Who cares? You know,
Yep.
no, I did care, but you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
now I'm like, come on, we got to have a Gettysburg park. Dude, that would be fun.
That
And
would
I
be
think
fun.
it would, you know, that's what I'm saying. It is a place of serious history, but you've got to have light in the dark.
Right.
The dark is to have light. So, okay. Anyway, going back to you, like, where are we staying? Where are we going to check in?
Because I do like history, there are so many different bed and breakfasts that you can stay in that were actually used as Civil War hospitals during the Battle of Gettysburg. So you can't get any closer to history than that. The Brapperton Inn is one of the oldest buildings in Gettysburg. The Dobbin House, I'll save that for the eating part. Gosh.
Oh, what? Tell me about the eating part. What's
Okay,
happening?
the Dobbin House Inn would be that was built in 1776, the same year as the Declaration of Independence was signed.
Wow.
And it is just a beautiful historic old tavern and has good food as well.
Are you kidding me? That's historic. Like you said 1776. I mean, now I'm from the Southwest. Like seriously, we have ancient Native American history. So that's way, way old, which you have too. And then it's like, okay, yeah, if we're from the 1800s of, you know, that's it. But that's amazing. 1776. What was it in that time frame? Not a restaurant, right? Or was it?
No, it was built as kind of as a residence, although the Reverend Dobbin I think he had 11 children or 9 children because of a second wife type thing. So it was kind of a school. He also opened up a school in it. So.
He had his own school for his own kids. Yeah, really. Sorry.
So that's where it's.
Wow. But I mean, he was a busy man, you know. Yeah. But then I'm just saying. So now is it fine dining or?
It's fine dining as well as they have a pub downstairs. Casual and fine dining. Yes.
Oh, I love that. So you can have your date night upstairs, your
Exactly.
romantic
Yep.
time,
Candlelight
or like
dinner
special
upstairs.
perfect. Yeah. Or if you
Yes,
just want to go in and have a good time, that's perfect.
exactly. Yes.
What is it about ice cream in Gettysburg that I keep hearing ice cream as throughout the interview? My head keeps going ice cream. I don't know what that comes from what interview before, but is there an ice cream thing in Gettysburg
Well,
what is it?
there's the most famous ice cream place is Mr. G's. That's the one people seem to talk about a lot, but there are other ones now that have sprang up, and I think they're all probably very good. The only thing about Mr. G's is it's across from the Farnsworth House, which is another restaurant that was here during the Civil War, during the Battle of Gettysburg. So
Wow.
that's a place to eat. And they're an inn, and they have ghost tours. So,
Oh,
um,
you talked about that ghost tours.
yes,
See, the Klingel
yes.
House, it is the Klingel House. That artisan residents said their stuff, and one artist, one photographer, Jim Schlett, has photos of what looks like blood on the walls that
Ooh,
happened overnight. Like real.
oh,
I'm not kidding. Like real for real stuff, man.
yeah.
Like
Well,
they were there, and then the next morning, like there was blood on the walls.
holy cow.
And he sent me photos of it. It's for real.
Yeah, there's
And
a
then
number.
they had a peach tree out there. People leave peach pie recipes there and
Oh,
stuff. I know. It's there's blood and peaches. I don't know what to say, but I saw that's the first thing we saw was a Klingel house and the horses, people on horseback. But I don't know why the ice cream thing. I think everybody just kept talking about ice cream every show or something from the artists that we've interviewed. I was like, what? What's going on? We're going to Gettysburg for Civil War history, but you want to talk about ice cream? Okay. So,
well, I guess if it's
but
hot out and that's how you end
yeah,
your with ice cream.
but yeah, so haunted history has to happen. I mean, do they do any kind
Yes.
of festival for that or special events?
There's no special events, but there are walking tours really all year long. And there's actual ghost investigations. There's a number of old houses that were used as hospitals where they've proven that there's still that the stains on the floor are human blood. So yeah,
That's it. That
Halloween.
was the wall. Yeah. That's what happened in the Klingle house. It's like the paint rolled up and then you saw the blood stains.
Wow.
But then other people said, well, that could happen in a house when this and this happens. And I'm going, it's kind of highly unusual,
I
weird.
would think.
I'll have to go. I will connect you with Jim Shutt, and so you can see that.
Yeah.
The photographer, so you can see what I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
weird because
That
when
sounds,
he talked about it, he was like, "It's weird, man." They had a weird vibe, and there's some people that were there, and they're like, "I didn't have any weird vibes at all." And then there's people like, "Holy cow, man, this
yeah.
place is freaking haunted." I didn't know what haunted was until I stayed there. So it became every interview when NPAF, the National Parks Arts Foundation, had these residencies. It was like, were you haunted or not? You know, as we're doing live shows, they're like, please don't turn off the live feed. You know,
Wow.
um, yeah. So I believe Gettysburg's haunted. I mean, how could you not be? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel that like yourself or no?
I do. I've had a couple of strange experiences, and I think a lot of I hear, even growing up, I've heard a lot of stories. People think they're passing reenactors, and then there's no reenactor there. So, yeah, I've heard a lot of stories. Another haunted place that people go to is Sachs Covered Bridge, which both
Oh
armies
yes.
used, and that's really a big spot for people that want to take pictures and
You talk
sometimes
about the
get,
covered bridge, and I think that's a huge thing for Pennsylvania as a whole. I
yes.
mean, is the covered bridges. And then you're like, you want to take a photo, and then you're like, are you going to get knocked over by a car? No, a horse and carriage or buggy's going
Yeah,
to come by and knock you
exactly.
over. You know, I mean, yeah, that's something that your state does well is covered bridges. There's other states like in Kentucky and stuff, but I mean, you really do have covered bridges. It's amazing, to
Yeah, I
see.
think when I was growing up, we had 7 or 8 in the county. Now there's only 2. I think there's one maybe on private property that they saved, but
Wow. And people
it's
travel just for them.
Yes.
They travel just for, I mean, it's like people travel just for cemeteries, and, people travel just for covered bridges, and because it's part of Americana. It's our
Exactly.
nostalgia, and
Yeah.
it's sad when you see them go. It's like
Yes.
neon signs on Route 66 are all going down, and, you know, um, it's part of our heritage,
Exactly.
Wow. Wow. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Really, everybody, you've got to keep up with Jessica, even though I want to call her Jessie James, at pastlanetravels.com. Also, for the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, again, it is ifwtwa.org. And you can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We are here every second Tuesday, second Friday, third Monday, and third Friday with F12. We have 4 shows with them. And it's just awesome because we get to talk with destinations and travel writers. And it's been fun over the years doing these conversations, because you get an insider's look as a travel writer. But with Jessica, I was going to say Jessie, like Jessie James, she's truly in that spot, like something iconic, like, Gettysburg. So it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa. It's great talking to you.
You too. You take care.